Here's how I use my first month of Claude Pro. So first demo we got here is a simple animation system just for making motion graphics. I was just trying to see what Claude would do with some sort of a layered interface. Here's a hex viewer for reverse engineering binary formats. Nothing fancy, actually very simple, but it has some good highlighting, hides zero values. Was useful for a few other projects in the future. This was a note-taking app, kind of like Obsidian. I'm kind of showing off none of the features right now, but it has a movable canvas. You can draw lines, you can paste pictures, write text. Nothing fancy, and I'm not even fully exercising it in this clip. Once again, just playing around with what one-sentence prompts can create. This was obviously a Discord clone. Was able to send text messages and images, as well as basic voice chat with a friend. Though this is just the prototype they showed early on. I didn't want to show my private messages. This was a tool I made to search through my Claude chat history. I found that on their web interface, every once in a while conversations would go missing. So made my own backup to be able to figure out what I had searched for or what I had used in the past as prompts and whatnot. Be able to search through it all, easily get back to that conversation and see what context was. Next we have a simple game prototype. Which is a goofy concept where you're acting as the government, stealing money from people, going around with a money vacuum until the economy collapses. This next prototype, inspired by the Artemis 2 mission, to call it failure to launch. You have a little spacecraft, you create an initial trajectory and see if you can circle the moon or not. Very hard, very easy to just fling out into space, or if you didn't put enough force behind it, you could crash back into the planet or into the moon. Trying to actually do just enough to circle around and come back. Extremely challenging. Probably the physics wasn't even set up right to do it successfully, but it's a silly little game concept. Next up, we have a pretty failed project. I told Claude to make a version of Mario Kart. Now, I'm not entirely sure what it was trying to do. It did some weird combination of 2D, 3D that just did not work. It was so bad out of the gate that I didn't even bother to try to refine this and to make something actually playable. This was told to make something interesting with a bunch of particles. Turns out, if you tell that to Claude, it just defaults to making a galaxy thing. Little toy. And next up, we'll have another iteration of this, which is slightly different, but same concept. Just a bunch of particles. You have you can move around the attractor. You can also invert the physics to make it repel if you want. Here's just a quick, what happens if you don't move at all? Just vacuums everything up. I told it to make something like Pokemon Stadium. So you select your team and then fight in an arena. Claude often would do things in 2 dimensions instead of 3 dimensions. That is definitely where Claude shines. You can make things work in 3 dimensions, but it's not very good at thinking through 3 dimensions out the box. So this was another attempt at having it make something game-like. They used a bunch of particles, In this case, it was a bullet hell and not just another Galaxy Sim thing. This turned out to be actually kind of a fun prototype to play. You have your screen shake, you have kind of overly large explosions for the enemies. I found that this was using the Opus model. It really likes to do a lot of visual embellishments on things, even it wasn't actually really any more polished of a code base than what came out of Sonnet, just often had more lines of code in general. This next example is just this very simple tower defense game. You can place towers, you have waves of enemies that come. For once, so most games that Claude makes are not very well balanced. This one was actually balanced on the easy side as opposed to being overly difficult to play. I found that most of the prototypes that Claude made were overly difficult if it was more of a skill thing. This was a node interface for a project I was working on. This is a little dashboard I made just of all the different things I was planning to make. Ask Claude to do, try out, kind of binned by categories, had an area for failures, areas for prototypes. This was a options visualizer, so you could show different option strategies, stack them together, how they affect your win-loss ratios, and how far of a move is required to actually get a profit. This was just a simple audio visualizer, but had I think 7 different. We'll see in a moment here. I think there were 7 different visualizations that it did. The point of making this was not for the visualizer itself, but more I was working on extracting different information from an audio feed to eventually be used for controlling some DMX lighting. That was using at a gig. So here's the interesting visualizations. The important part here for me was kind of the FFTs, then that made this further application that kind of broke out kind of the beats per minute detection, had all sorts of other things. I ended up mostly just using the BPM parts to change the light. Here was a little visualization of what I was trying to accomplish. It was a little bit janky, what Claude put together, but I used this with some code that I had written manually. I used some of the extraction techniques to power some actual DMX lights. Here now, this is a quick utility I wrote to control the soundboard. Fairly simple. This was just playing around with procedural generation of 3D meshes. Turns out when you leave it as this basic math, it can get a lot of the basic math right. But even on these most basic things of mesh generation, it's still got planes backwards quite often. This is actually a music generator, which was one of the better. So I tried many different variations of music generation during this whole endeavor, and everything you're hearing now was actually written in code by Claude. This was off the bat. Now this is set up in a way where you can actually edit the arpeggios, what beats the drums are hitting on, the triangle. You can set the chords and everything. But I thought this was actually a pretty cool sounding result that could be used for like background track for a video game. So I'm just gonna let you listen to the rest of this. This was a skeleton player. So this was existing animations from an other game that's open source from a long time ago. And I was just use Claude to read in the binary format and then be able to play through the different animations in a very basic way. And finally, this editor that I'm using now to make this video was also written in Claude code. While it was a fun first month, I'm still not entirely certain how I'll use this going forward, or if I'll just go back to the free version, which got similar amount of usage.